He didn't get drafted in the first round. He didn't get drafted in the second, or the third, or the fourth. Shedeur Sanders, son of a legend, quarterback of a generation, fell all the way to the fifth round. And when Cleveland finally called his name, the whole world thought maybe, just maybe, this was his moment, his redemption arc, his story. But someone else had other plans.
So it was reported that Deshaun Watson, after these OTAs, Deshaun Watson will be gathering up the wide receivers down in Miami, I believe, and they'll be getting some work in together before training camp. Now, my question is, where does that leave Shedeur Sanders? Does Shedeur Sanders need to be down there working with Deshaun Watson and the receivers too, or does he need to do his own thing with some receivers and try to round them up in Texas somewhere? I don't know, but these things matter, and everything is going to be being paid attention to. So if you see all of the receivers working out with Deshaun and not Shedeur right before training camp.
Right now, inside the Cleveland Browns facility, something is happening that nobody saw coming. Deshaun Watson, a quarterback who hasn't won consistently in 4 years, a man carrying more baggage than any player in recent NFL memory, is quietly making a move so calculated, so veteran, so cold that it could end Shedeur Sanders' 2026 season before it even begins. And here's what's terrifying about it. Nobody is stopping him.
Of the Cleveland Browns.
Well, and also, Earl, like if you're somebody who's worried about the quarterback position, which I think a lot of people have questions at least, I think when you have that run game going and that's your identity, to Daniel's point, that takes a lot of pressure off that position. So if you're as worried as I am about, Deshaun looks good right now when they're just in helmet and jerseys and it's 7-on-7 for a lot of these drills. Yeah, he can look good now. What's it going to look like on Sundays? That's always been the question with Deshaun since he's been here in Cleveland is when the bullets are flying, when you're out there in a game atmosphere.
Let's go back to the beginning, because to understand what's happening right now, you have to understand how we got here. Deshaun Watson arrived in Cleveland in 2022 with a fully guaranteed $230 million contract, the biggest in NFL history at the time. A deal so enormous, so reckless, that people called it a franchise-defining mistake from day one. And they weren't wrong. Watson missed 11 games in his first season for violations of the league's personal conduct policy. When he came back, he was a shadow of the three-time Pro Bowler who had electrified Houston. Incomplete passes, poor decisions, a stat line that made fans physically look away. Then, in October of 2024, just as hope was starting to flicker, his Achilles snapped. Again. His second torn Achilles, his career on life support, the contract still on the books, the city of Cleveland holding the bag. And into that disaster zone walked a 22-year-old rookie named Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders was supposed to be a top 5 pick. Mock drafts had him going in the top 10, no question. Instead, the NFL made him wait. And wait. And wait. 143 picks passed before Cleveland finally selected him in the 5th round. The disrespect was loud. The silence from teams was deafening. His father, Deshaun Sanders, watched the draft unfold with a face that said everything words couldn't. But here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders. He showed up. In 8 appearances last season, he threw for over 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, and yes, 10 interceptions. Not perfect, but for a 5th-round rookie thrown into a broken offense behind a shattered offensive line, running a system mid-season, people around the league noticed. And when Dillon Gabriel went down with a concussion and Sanders stepped in, the Browns didn't look back. He kept the job. He earned the right to call himself QB1 going into 2026. At least, that's what everyone thought.
$230 million benched? The Cleveland Browns quarterback trauma just exploded. Former NFL GM Mike Tannenbaum says the Browns should get Deshaun Watson's massive $230 million contract and start Shedeur Sanders immediately. Tannenbaum called Watson's deal a sunk cost, basically saying Cleveland can't keep forcing the veteran onto the field just because they paid him superstar money. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders keeps gaining momentum during OTAs, with coaches praising his growth and confidence. Fans are now split all over social media. Some believe Watson deserves one last shot, while others think the Browns are wasting time by not handing the franchise to Shedeur right now. If Sanders wins this QB battle, it could become one of the biggest NFL storyline twists of the season.
Had Lamar Jackson. I thought it was interesting, Earl, that on Wednesday this week, you saw Todd Monken using Deshaun Watson as like a designed runner, which wasn't always how he was utilized when he was in Houston. A lot of his runs were more rooted in, hey, I'm flushed out of the pocket, I'm improvising with my legs a little bit, now I'm going to take off. And you saw him incorporating some read option stuff, some split zone read options that resulted in him being able to keep the ball and run.
Then came the mini camp. Reports started coming out of Berea that quietly turned heads around the NFL world. Watson wasn't just participating in OTAs, he was operating like a man on a mission, a man who understood exactly how football politics work, because he's been in this league for nearly a decade. While the cameras focused on Shedeur, Watson was putting in the work behind the scenes. And then this dropped. Word came out that Watson was organizing private workouts in Miami, pulling together the Browns' wide receivers before training camp even begins, gathering them, building chemistry, cementing relationships. Without Shedeur. Think about what that means for a second. If you walk into training camp and every wide receiver has already built their timing, their trust, their connection with the other quarterback, you are already behind. Not on paper, not on the stat sheet, in the locker room, in the huddle, in the moments that matter. Watson didn't just show up to practice. He made a move, a veteran move. Cold, calculated, brilliant, honestly, if you're rooting for Watson. Devastating if you're rooting for Shedeur. And then came the words that stung most. Mary Kay Cabot, the most plugged-in reporter on this Cleveland Browns beat, reported what insiders had already started whispering. Watson has the inside track. The unofficial depth chart, she said, has already been set. Deshaun goes first in individual drills. Shedeur goes second. Gabriel goes third. First, second, third. Those three words rewrote the entire narrative, because let's be honest, Todd Monken, the Browns' new head coach, is operating with an entirely new offensive line, a rebuilt offense, in a team that needs stability now. Watson is the veteran. Watson has the experience. Watson carries the resume from his Houston days, when he was genuinely one of the best quarterbacks in football. Monken reportedly wants to name a starter by June 11th. That's not a lot of time. And right now, inside that building, Shedeur Sanders is not the front runner.
And a significant impact on the Cleveland Browns being winners.
Yeah, listen, I think that this has always been about the run game first and foremost, despite how valuable the quarterback position is, despite how much we've paid attention to that quarterback competition to this point, and how much we've talked about the quarterback competition. Todd Monken has told you time and time again that a good offense starts in the trenches. The proof is in the pudding on that, because they spent most of their resources this offseason starting in free agency.
Here's what makes this story so much more complicated than just a quarterback competition. The Cleveland Browns didn't rebuild their offense around a passing game. They rebuilt it around the trenches. New offensive linemen, 2 tight ends drafted, a fullback signed. Todd Monken's entire philosophy, forged during his time with the Baltimore Ravens, starts with the run game. Protect the quarterback, run the football, make everything else easy. And when you run that system, when the ground game is eating up yards and the defense is gassed, the quarterback position becomes less about raw talent and more about experience, decision-making, and not making the mistake that kills a drive. Watson, for all his flaws, has been in those moments before. He knows what a hostile Sunday in December feels like. Shedeur hasn't played a full NFL season yet. The coaching staff isn't wrong for considering that. But here's the football truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Watson hasn't been a functional starting quarterback in Cleveland. Not once. And yet, the organization, from owner Jimmy Haslam publicly backing him at league meetings to the coaching staff giving him first-team reps, keeps pulling him back from the edge. And every time they do, it costs Shedeur something. Time, reps, confidence, momentum, the currency of a young quarterback's development. ESPN's Tim Hasselbeck went on NFL Live and said what a growing number of people believe. He said Watson doesn't have a shot, that 2 Achilles tears, a year and a half away from game action, and a locker room credibility problem that stretches back years, that combination is too much to overcome. Shedeur Sanders, Hasselbeck said, finds himself in a remarkable position. A remarkable position, but remarkable doesn't mean secure. Because right now, in the real world, not in the analyst chair, not on a TV set, Shedeur Sanders is the number 2 quarterback on the Browns' unofficial depth chart, going second in drills, watching Watson gather receivers in Miami without him, racing a 6-week clock to prove to a coaching staff that he deserves what the data, the eye test, and the future of this franchise all suggest he already has. His own job, his own team, his own moment. Here is the question that nobody in Cleveland wants to answer honestly. If Deshaun Watson starts Week 1 of the 2026 NFL season and the run game works and they win a few games in September, what happens when October comes? What happens when defenses adjust, when Watson is under pressure and the pocket collapses, and you see the hesitation, the flinch, the ghost of 2 torn Achilles? Do you pivot to Shedeur then, when the season is already half gone, when he hasn't had reps, hasn't built chemistry with his receivers, hasn't had the chance to develop the way a young quarterback needs to? Do you waste the one asset, the one young, hungry, talented quarterback that gives this franchise a legitimate path forward? Shedeur Sanders did not fall to the 5th round because he wasn't good enough. He fell because of politics, because of narratives, because of a league that made a decision before he ever took an NFL snap. And now, inside the Browns facility in Berea, Ohio, that same pattern is playing out again. Watson is making his move. The clock is ticking, and Shedeur Sanders has roughly 6 weeks to remind an entire organization, remind an entire league, that some stories don't end the way powerful people plan them to. Some stories end the way they were always supposed to, with the right man under center, whether Cleveland is ready for that or not. If you made it this far, you already know this story isn't over. The minicamp closes June 11th, training camp starts in late July, and every single rep between now and then is going to matter. We're going to cover every twist, every development, every move Watson makes, and every answer Shedeur gives right here on this channel. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button right now, ring that bell, because when this story breaks wide open, you do not want to be the last one to know. This is Cleveland. This is the NFL, and this is just the beginning.